There is a difference between edutainment and education. There's a direct pipeline from kindergarten to the penitentiary. We reverse that, education, into edutainment. I learn differently from other people. My mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother made it fun to learn as opposed to standing over me with a ruler or a paddle. That became not only punishment, but it also became abuse on a firm foundation of the Willie Lynch letter, to where one was beaten into submission to learn wait a minute, hold on. You bet not read. If you learn how to read, I will kill you. But I want you to read this. What they wanted you to read was something else. We'll not get into that. The myths of T. Rodgers, starting out with just education, educase, a case to be fought in court for your life, case shun, which shuns you into either humiliation, degradation, or humiliation, versus edutainment, to make it fun to learn, to have a thirst, to grab all of the knowledge that the universe has. The myths of T. Rodgers. At 7 years old, to be allowed to go outside and play in the backyard on the south side of Chicago with the big kids. And then to venture outside of that fenced-in backyard into the alleyway. And as I looked down that alleyway, and the sun started to set, because you know back then you had to be in the house before the street lights came on. I couldn't chase lightning bugs and put them in the jar where you pull the butts off of them. But then as I got older, I did. The myths of T. Rodgers. To believe that long alleyway in the setting sun where discarded wine bottles and beer cans and broken glass shine like diamonds and rubies and emeralds and pearls. And I was the prince of that alley. It was, in my mind, the hidden, forbidden treasure of Aladdin or any other Walt Disney's fantasized sons and stories that was fed to me, the myths of T. Rodgers. To think that I got put out of school because I didn't put down on my final test that Christopher Columbus discovered America. Christopher Columbus said, not Eureka, he said, oops, as he fell off the boat and hit his head on Plymouth Rock. The myths of T. Rodgers. I lived on the second floor of a tenement building. Wasn't no chimneys, ho, ho, ho. And the only hose that I knew was down on 42nd Street. I had a little red wagon. My first hustle had a little red wagon. I would heat bricks from the basement and take them down there so the hose could ho, ho, ho. Welcome to Chicago. I think they call it Xmas. That's a whole nother lesson that you can learn in the self class, Survival Education for Life and Family. The myths of T. Rodgers is to think that I can join their gang, I could join our gang as opposed to their gang. It has nothing to do with our gang, Spanky and the Little Rascals, none of them. But that's another gang altogether. The myths of T. Rodgers is that when I was coming up and my older brother was a Boy Scout, I wanted to be a Cub Scout. And they let me in. I had the uniform and I was dressed, and all the girls, they love a man in uniform. I was gaining my badges, and they threw up gang signs and made me pledge and courted me in. They had a thing called a belt line, and if you did something wrong, they would send you through this belt line, and I still have a scar where you wasn't supposed to get hit with the buckle. They beat my ass with the myths of T. Rodgers, to only find out that the scoutmaster was a pedophile. The myths of T. Rodgers, who said join our gang as opposed to their gang, to where I would have been molested had I not had a bigger brother. That when all is said and done, rat-a-tat-tat-tat is the only sound spreading them goddamn blues around, joining their gang as opposed to our gang. And I wound up embraced, encased, and loved by the almighty Black Peace Stone Nation. The myths of T. Rodgers. That was the introduction into my survival. The myth of T. Rodgers. At that time, it was not a gang. It was an organization. It was a organized nation. The myths of T. Rodgers will not say on my tombstone, here lies T. Rodgers, the leader and founder of the almighty Black Peace Stone Nation on the West Coast. There's much more to me than just that. I am a father. I'm a grandfather. Family first. I am what is called, through African tradition, a griot. So when one is addressed by OG, the myths of T. Rodgers, one is addressed by the term OG, it doesn't mean original gangster. There's only three things in a gang. Out of my mouth, and quote me if you will: cowards, kids, and homosexuals. I never was in a gang. Never. 75–80% of California prisons are SNY, special needs yards, which transfers over into PC, protective custody, which transfers over into Punk City. So the down low homosexual gangs have to be more violent and vicious than the traditional gangs in order for them to survive. The myths of T. Rodgers. The myths of T. Rodgers has to be 6'6", 18-inch arms, 38-inch chest, 29-inch waist, one-eyed, unibrow, teeth knocked out. Not true. I'm 5'6". I've been 5'6" since the 8th grade. People are afraid of a man who acts wisely. My Uzi weighs a ton. Did I say that my AK has turned into a 401k? Does one want war or revolution? The myths of T. Rodgers. Because I understand and I listen. I've mastered the art of listening to people that you may deem undesirable, disenfranchised, or gang members who are actually your children and your grandchildren, your nephews, your cousins, your aunts, your brothers, your mothers, your grandfathers, grandmothers. Because I listen, and I'm able to digest that information and regurgitate solutions and answers. The myths of T. Rodgers. People are afraid of a man who acts wisely. The myths of T. Rodgers. He said, I am so misunderstood. If I just changed that just a little bit and said, I am so misunderstood. The myths of T. Rodgers. If now you sit with me and in 5 minutes I share with you part of my life experience in my soul, and I beg you, just be still. Just be still. And in you being still, listen to your soul. Your soul knows how to heal you. It knows the answer. It knows what you're supposed to do for the rest of your life. The myths of T. Rodgers. When you put 10 on the 2 and they say that I've done this and I've done that and I've done this, not true. What has happened is this. The speaker of truth has no friends. The speaker of truth has no friend. The myths of T. Rodgers.